Find somewhere dark and quiet. Put your headphones on. Listen closely now. Tonight's story is called The River That Gives Back. We begin with rain. Heavy, steady rain that makes the mountains weep. The river swells, all teeth and silver, and something glints beneath the surface, just for a breath. A small shoe, caked in silt, turns in the current and slips free. A child's voice answers the water, a sound like a throat clearing underwater. And then, from some place the river should not reach, a knocking that sounds like bone on wood. Do you feel that? That pull toward the bank, the wet air full of iron and pine? That's where Mara will find her first impossible thing. Mara was the kind of volunteer who could never stay away. She taught climbing classes at the community center, fixed other people's broken tents, and after her brother disappeared 10 years ago, she learned the river better than anyone. The town calls it a helper and a hazard. Mara calls it a ledger. Smell the wet pine with me, sharp, resinous. The river's constant white noise under every conversation. People around here made peace with not knowing. My family, we never did. I learned to read the current the way other people read faces. For years, disappearances in the valley turned into lists on old case files and slow-burning family prayers. Hikers who never finished a trail, a teenage couple who missed a ferry home, an angler who vanished while his dog barked at empty water. Officially, many cases were unsolved, no evidence. Unofficially, the river held a quiet reputation. It takes and it keeps. The first strange gift washes up the week after a late thunderstorm. A wedding band threaded through the laces of a boot. The boot tied shut, as if someone wanted the ring to be found, and yet to remain hidden. The family recognized a tiny hammer scar on the inside of the band, something only the groom's sister could name. The police called it a coincidence. Neighbors called it a miracle. Mara called it a question she could not leave alone. I've patrolled this stretch 30 years. Rivers give back sometimes, but they don't give back the same. Items come out changed, the stitches altered, a photo with a new face staring out. Folks start to notice patterns, and then they stop sleeping. The returned things grew stranger. A child's sweater with a hand-stitched initial and thread that had not been there before. A fishing lure bent into the shape of a small, careful spiral. A photograph damp with river smell, and, impossibly, someone else standing in the background who had never been in the room when the photo was taken. People began bringing items to the river and waiting, as if hoping the water would answer its own question about what it had swallowed. When the things started to show up, people came to me first. Maybe because I look, maybe because I won't take comfort in an easy answer. They asked, "Did you find anything you can tell us?" I would bring them closer to the bank and say, "Watch what the water wants to give." The town split into belief and worry. Some claimed the river was settling old scores. Others warned of false hope, that finding a ring or a boot doesn't bring a person back. An old fisherman named Hal said one thing that stuck. Rivers remember the shape of loss, not the face of who was lost. There are rules, though no one can agree where they began. Don't call it home. Leave offerings to the bend. Some say the river listens to names. Mostly, keep your hands out of the water at night. Folks that break the rules, well, stories change. Then, Mara found an object with a name attached. In a clump of willow roots, a library card bobbed free, laminated, water-pitted, and inside someone's cramped handwriting, the nickname of a missing teenager, the one whose case had stalled like an old engine. The card had been erased and rewritten, an additional line added in a different pen. Upstream. Follow the hollow. Mara held the card until it stopped trembling. She had a choice. Leave it to the police, or follow the river upstream at night and ask whatever listened there a question it might answer.
I remember the night like the back of my hand. The flashlight threw a pool of cold on the rocks. The river was loud, too loud, and it felt like someone had duct-taped my heart to a drum. People told me not to go. They warned me about taking things from the water. I went anyway.
The climb upstream is narrow. Pebbles that bite at your ankles. Tree roots that reach like hands. Thunder pushed the night in, and at the bend, the river narrowed to a throat. Mara found a hollow beneath an overturned root, a place where water pooled, and the surface held a mirror that was not her face. She knelt. She asked a question aloud. What did you do with them?
For a long moment, nothing happened but the river's voice. Then the hollow released something, an answering sound like someone dragging a net across gravel, like a voice bubble popping from deep water. The river spooled memories in fragments, a smell of diesel, a child's song hummed off-key, the rattle of a trailer hitch. Some of what Mara heard matched reports in the files. Some of it did not belong to any language she knew.
I heard my brother's laugh in a way that wasn't his laugh, like someone had folded his voice into a river rock shape. I found a boot with a name inscribed that I had only seen on a memorial plaque. The water pushed answers and then softened them like bread. I wanted to hold them whole. The river would not be held.
News of Mara's upstream night spread. Detectives reopened files. Families watched for movement, like people waiting for sunrise. But evidence from water is not like evidence from a shelf. It's damp, altered, contested. Prosecutors asked who touched it first, who could confirm chain of custody. Some families took what they found and stitched the edges of their lives back together. Others left the items on porches like offerings. The town learned that listening can reopen wounds as much as it can close them. You can't expect a river to be moral. It erodes truth into sediment. But what happened next was human. Asking a place for what it knows invites people to do dangerous things. People walked at night with flashlights. People dove into cold water for a scrap of cloth. That curiosity cost sleep, and sometimes it cost more. Months later, life in the valley rearranged around a new code. Look, but do not demand. Investigations used river returns as leads, not proofs. Mara stopped sleeping in her small apartment. She slept with shoes by the door and photos pinned to the wall. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, she would wake and swear she could hear a child's small laugh braided with the hiss of current. The final thing the river gave her was ordinary, a single button from a coat she'd last seen on a passenger list from 10 years before. It sat on her doorstep the morning after a storm, dark with silt, and threaded through it, impossibly, were 3 fine roots, like stitches. No note, no explanation, just the button, damp and patient. I held that button until my fingers went numb. I felt closer and farther than I had before. The river had answered, but it did not say everything. It gave me pieces that made new questions. That is the danger of wanting the wild to be kind. It is neither kind nor cruel. It is simply itself, and that can be harder to live with than a human villain you can name. If you live where nature keeps its own counsel, you learn to respect its replies. Sometimes a returned ring becomes a thread that unravels a case. Sometimes a returned shoe becomes a scar that never stops aching. The river did not solve everything. It rearranged grief into a different weight. The town kept walking along its banks, listening, because people hope for meaning, even when the meanings are partial.
If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who listens in the dark. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, check the corners, keep your eyes open, and your lights, maybe not too bright.
If you're still here, it means the story followed you all the way to the end. Take a breath. Look around your room. Make sure everything is exactly where you left it. I'm Samnang. Good night.